What if everything you've been taught about healing taking time is simply not true? That it's an outdated assumption of how reality works that's now being challenged by thousands of people who are healing in ways we were told were impossible. We're now seeing countless cases of instantaneous healing, along with people recovering from conditions far faster than what we've come to accept as medically normal. At Dr. Joe Dispenza's multi-day retreats alone, people have dissolved tumors, reversed paralysis, restored their eyesight, and resolved chronic health conditions within the course of a single event. And these aren't isolated stories coming from one type of person or one part of the world. From physical conditions to emotional trauma, people from every walk of life, people just like you, are having experiences that challenge some of our most deeply held assumptions about what the human body is capable of. Most of us have been conditioned from childhood to believe that healing takes time. We've been taught that the body has very specific limitations, that certain conditions take a certain amount of time to heal, and that healing is largely something that has to be done to us by someone or something outside of ourselves. But that paradigm is slowly but surely beginning to fall apart. It's an outdated paradigm that no longer serves who we are becoming as humanity evolves. We're undergoing an awakening where people are starting to realize that the ability to heal is part of who we are, and that what we call instant healing isn't some supernatural exception to the rules. It's a natural ability we've been conditioned to believe we don't have. Today, we're going to demystify instant healing because there's actually a very simple process behind it, and knowledge is power. Once you understand how that process works, the idea that healing can happen instantly stops sounding quite so impossible. More importantly, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it yourself. It's the method I've used for many years and taught to countless clients. But first, let's talk about what an imbalance actually is. Whether it's a physical condition, depression, anxiety, or trauma, every state of being we experience is a vibrational state. It exists within a frequency range that represents one of the infinite possibilities and probabilities we can experience. Your physical body is an expression of your state of consciousness, reflecting back to you your current energetic state. At your core, you are an energetic being. Your physical body is formed from a highly intricate energetic structure composed of energy centers that emit energy which flows throughout your body. It's regulated by a toroidal field that flows through the center of your body and around it, connecting you to the greater field of consciousness, to Source. Every state of being has its own frequency range. The experience of a disease represents one frequency state, and being completely healthy and balanced represents another. Every health condition you experience has a resonant frequency. So when we talk about healing, we're not talking about creating some new perfect version of you that doesn't already exist. The frequency of a healed state already exists within that field, that infinite field of all possibility. Healing is about tuning into that frequency. Every imbalance first begins on an energetic level. We experience this first in our lives and in how we emotionally feel. We may feel unhappy, frustrated, sad, angry, burdened, anxious, traumatized, or generally discontent. These experiences are messengers telling us that something within us is out of alignment. We are resonating at a frequency that's out of sync with our natural flow. And if we continue in that state rather than addressing what those emotions are showing us, eventually that imbalance can express itself as depression, anxiety, trauma, or a disease in the body. But the key is this: every state of being has its own frequency. The experience of being out of balance represents one frequency state, and being completely healthy and balanced represents another. Any condition you experience always has its own resonant frequency, and so does the healed state. This is where we begin to understand one of the most important principles behind healing. You cannot experience what you are not the vibration of. What we normally do when something goes wrong is immediately look outside of ourselves for the solution. We go to a doctor, a therapist, an addiction counselor, an energy healer, a trauma therapist, or someone else we believe has the ability to fix us. And there's nothing wrong with that. But somewhere along the way, we've confused looking externally for help with where the power to heal really comes from. We already have countless examples showing us just how powerfully our consciousness can affect our biology. The placebo effect alone shows us that people can experience powerful biological changes simply because they believe they've received a treatment, even though the actual treatment wasn't given. Visualization studies have repeatedly shown that mentally practicing a physical activity can dramatically improve muscle size, strength, and performance. And athletes have been using visualization for decades because they know that imagining an action affects how we actually perform it. We can change our heart rate through intent alone, affect the release of hormones, and directly impact our immune response by the way we think. So the idea that consciousness and the body are somehow separate is simply false. Science has already proven otherwise. The same principle applies when we use someone else to help us heal. A doctor may set a broken bone, prescribe a treatment, or perform a surgery. An energy healer may create an energetic environment that represents balance. A therapist may give us a completely different way of looking at an experience we've carried for years. All of these things can be valuable, but none of them are actually responsible for the healing itself. Let me explain. There is a reason that different healing methods work for different people, and it's all governed by one word: belief. It's the belief, whether conscious or unconscious, that determines the outcome. This is why one person can find a conventional drug effective, whereas another doesn't. One person can find energy healing effective, whereas another experiences nothing. One person may have success with an addiction or trauma therapist, whereas another doesn't. Some may experience healing through meditation, hypnosis, breath work, or something completely different. It's never a one-size-fits-all because the method itself isn't where the power to heal ultimately lies. It's your belief in that method that gives you permission to move into the experience of a healed state. In other words, the doctor, healer, therapist, treatment, or technique is what we call a permission slip. You believe it can help you, so you give yourself permission to experience being healed through it. And permission slips can be very useful. We see a method effective for healing someone else, and so we believe it'll work for us. In doing so, we give it permission to heal us. But once you understand what's actually happening, you begin to realize something incredibly empowering. The ability to change your state, emotionally, physically, psychologically, was yours all along. You were simply giving yourself permission to experience something through someone or something else. You unintentionally gave your power away. So how do you actually do this yourself? It's far easier than you think. You begin by withdrawing your attention from the state you're currently experiencing and placing your attention and intention on the state you want to experience instead. That doesn't mean denying what you're experiencing now or pretending it's not there. It means recognizing that what you're experiencing now is transient. It doesn't have to define what you experience next. You stop continually feeding it with your attention, your thoughts, your expectations, and your identity. Instead, tune yourself into the version of you who is already healed. Don't think of that person as your future self, because that's where it'll stay. Everything you can possibly experience is accessible from the present moment. So rather than imagining that someday you'll become healthy, or someday you'll be free of the trauma, depression, or anxiety, bring that state into the present and ask yourself, if I were completely healed right now, how would I feel? What would I think? How would I move through my day? What would be different about me if this condition simply disappeared? And then let your mind explore. Immerse yourself in that state. Feel it as completely as you can. In everything you do, see yourself moving through your life from that state. Imagine the relief, the freedom, the energy, the peace, whatever being healed means to you. And spend more time identifying with that version of yourself than you spend identifying with the condition you're leaving behind. The key is that you're no longer trying to get from one state to another. You're tuning yourself into a state that already exists as a potential. It's a frequency shift. And this is where instant healing becomes possible. One of the biggest things that keeps us tied to a condition is our assumption that because it was here yesterday, it's here today. And it has to continue being here tomorrow. We expect continuity and believe that change has to happen gradually because that's how we've been taught to experience time. One moment leading into the next, with each moment carrying forward what existed in the one before it. So if I had this condition 5 minutes ago, I naturally assume I still have it now. If I've had it for 10 years, it becomes even harder to imagine that it could simply be gone tomorrow. But that's an outdated belief. That continuity isn't nearly as fixed as we think it is. Every moment is a new moment, and every moment gives you the opportunity to choose a different frequency state instead of recreating the same one. As we begin to understand ourselves as multidimensional beings, we also begin to understand that our experience of time within this dimension is far more flexible than we once believed. We don't have to keep recreating the same state from one moment to the next, simply because that's what we've always done. We can change quickly. We can change slowly. And the more we let go of the assumption that change must take a certain amount of time or be governed by someone else, the more freedom we give ourselves to jump from one frequency state into an entirely new one. You don't have to keep carrying the previous version of yourself forward simply because it existed a moment ago. That's the old paradigm, and it's time to let it go. The faster and more completely you let go of that old identity and instead choose to experience a healed state, the faster you experience the change. That doesn't mean forcing yourself to believe something while secretly checking every 5 minutes to see whether it worked. Continuing to check the condition for proof of change tells you there's doubt. You don't really believe. Instead, practice staying with the new state and continue withdrawing your attention from your current state. When you radiate the energy of being healed, it has no choice but to reflect back that reality, the frequency of being healed. Trusting in your ability to heal yourself may take some practice, especially when you've spent your entire life believing that healing comes from somewhere or someone outside of you. So start small. The next time you have a cold, a stiff joint, a minor injury, or something else that doesn't feel overwhelming, use it as an opportunity to practice. Withdraw your attention from the condition and begin experiencing yourself as already healed. With every success, you'll trust yourself a little more, and eventually you'll stop wondering whether you can heal yourself. You'll simply know you can. That's the point I've reached in my own life. When I experience a physical issue, I see it as transient, something like tendinitis, a neck or joint injury. It heals in days instead of months. I no longer carry health insurance because I trust implicitly in my ability to heal myself, while also knowing that if I ever need outside help, it'll easily and effortlessly be provided to me. There's no fear around it because I'm no longer placing the power to heal outside of myself. Remember, who you are now is a frequency state, and states can change. You don't have to wait to become something different. You can choose it right now. And the moment you stop defining yourself by what you've been and begin choosing what you prefer, you understand that becoming someone different doesn't require time. It requires knowing. And with that, we'll bring this to a close. Thank you for joining me in this exploration. Questions or comments are always welcome. I read them all. And I've also left a question in the pinned comment for any insights you'd like to offer. If this sharing resonates and you'd like to hear more, please hit the like button, which tells me if you're inspired by my teachings. Tap the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released. And thank you so much for listening and for being part of this beautiful growing community where we awaken to a new era of human potential and discover where power truly resides. Within ourselves, self-sovereign and self-empowered. Superhuman made simple with the architect.